we ready. All right. So first off, Lupe, Ray, appreciate you guys doing this. Let's start off real quick. I want to talk about The Last Dance because I'm upset that it's finished. But just give us your opinions. Ray, you can go first, and then Lupe, just about the whole Last Dance documentary.
Obviously, like the rest of the country, I thought it was pretty informative. It was good to have some nostalgia and go back to kind of our childhood days. I just think that it was good to get some insight into Mike's mindset, right? Because we all would talk, we can dream to be like him. We saw that other side. You know, I saw a picture from C.J. Miles yesterday, and he tweeted a picture he had with Michael Jordan. He said, "I wish I smiled in this picture." Dude, you're on a picture with Michael Jordan and you not smiling, yet he's smiling. So to me, it shows how crafted his image was by David Stern, and resurrecting that league, which was plagued by a lot of negativity in the early 80s, to where Mike made it a global game because he smiled, because he was amicable, even though on the outside looking in now, we see that wasn't always the case. So from my perspective, that's what was neat about it.
Nope.
Kind of the same thing, piggybacking on what Ray's talking about. It was really neat to get an insight to relive it again. I mean, it was my favorite player. I wore 23 in high school. I had posters all over my wall. And to get my own kids actually to kind of understand who he was, what made him so great. The reason Kobe was because of Michael, right? And not everyone really understood that. And to see him, and I thought that was awesome how the guy who did the documentary was able to capture all of that old footage and bring it back into today's times in 2020, and us let kind of Mike tell the story. And there's even things he forgot about. You can see him asking questions, looking at the iPad and laughing. And you can still see Mike is still Mike, I think, was it Gary Payton? Something about Gary could stop him, so he kind of just laughs. He looks at the iPad and laughs like, yeah, right. Like he really believes he can go out there right now and they can go in the driveway and play. And Gary Payton got a chance in hell to stop him.
Yeah.
So just the mental makeup, man, he was a different dude between the years, man. He really was. It's definitely quiet time at my house from 8 to 10. It has been for the last 5 weeks. And now it's kind of like, you're wishing it doesn't end, but it's over, unfortunately. But it was really great insight. And I definitely enjoyed it.
I appreciate your feedback on that. Ray got his screen covered. So Lupe, we're going to start with you. Just real quick, introduce, a little bit your background and how Texas Hardwork started, how it all started for you and kind of the direction of your program right now.
Sure. Actually, Terrence Jackson, Boo Man, started Texas Hardwork back over 11 years ago. Probably about a year and a half after that, I got involved with him. And, we basically started with two teams. He had the class of 2018, which is the first class that we actually saw through from babies, I call them, right, second, third grade, all the way through high school. And then the class of 2021 was kind of the second class that was a mix of kids with some younger kids, 22s, 2021s that I coached. And, now the program's been around 11 years. We've kind of went from a small mom and pop, I guess you can say, organization to, being blessed to having a lot of kids in college now, and it parlayed it into a shoe deal. And we sit here now having kids from all over the country, from all over the state, and able to play all over the country due to something that we started over 11 years ago.
Yeah, and we'll get into the shoe stuff later, but yeah, appreciate that. And then, Ray, yourself, just a quick history of how SA Finance got started.
Another California partner of mine, Alex Oyola. We started it back in 2007. Our first graduating class was 2013. Started with all those kids, just like Hardwork in the young ages, 4th, 5th, 6th grade. 2013 was our first year, 6 for 6. And regarding that class, our 2014 team, I think we had 12 kids go to school, 9 D1s there. So been really blessed to have good kids, good parents to stay dedicated and loyal to the program. So 14 years in.
Okay, good stuff. And we'll dive into both your programs here later. First thing, we found out yesterday, June 15th is tournaments can start. I know, Ray, you run tournaments. Hardwork runs a big one once a year. I honestly believe it's too early. That's just my personal opinion, that factory opened yesterday, and here we are, less than a month, and now we got full contact. So that's my personal opinion. But you guys, Do we think it's a good time to get rolling? I know kids are thirsty to get in the gym, and we'll talk about live periods later, but what are your thoughts on tournaments being allowed to start in the next couple of weeks or months? I say next month.
You know, I can't say I'm comfortable with, you know, first of all, we just, yesterday's our first day back in the gym, right? I mean, kids been on the slabs, kids kind of doing their own things outside, et cetera. I mean, for mine, the baby's a little bit different, right? The younger kids, I mean, younger kid can slip, fall, split, and get right back up, and nothing happens to them, right? But as the older kids, I think, at least for us, I'm looking at least a 3-week transition period to get the kids back in shape, 3 to 4 weeks before we even entertain that. But we're not going to do nothing until the live periods are announced, right? Because I'm going to set my schedule based on that with my older kids. Younger kids are a little bit different. So, yeah, I mean, it's hard to judge, man. I don't know. Maybe we see a spike in 10 days. Maybe we still see a decline. So I think it's still fluid for me.
Right.
Mark, please clarify your question. It's a little too early to have tournaments based on what? Health?
Well, the unknown, right? I mean, the factory opened literally yesterday with 0 contact, 25% occupancy. We literally had 12 kids at a gym at one time, and it was kind of uneasy. We've got all these stations set up 8 feet apart. Parents got to wear a mask. We try to get parents not to even stay. And now we're saying, you know, in a month, full contact, you know, parents in the gym, getting up, playing up and down. To me, I'm just a little nervous. So I'm just trying to get your opinion on it.
My opinion is off the beaten path. Now, like you, yesterday, I had 12 kids on the court. We wiped down basketballs. We took temperatures. We made sure they sanitized their hands twice. We made sure they took their temperatures when they were at home. So they weren't even supposed to get in the car before they came to the gym. So we're doing everything we need to do to make sure that they're protected. I am an avid reader, and I don't believe the numbers justify this. I know Lupe's in the medical industry, especially in the healthcare for elderly. I love our elderly, but I'm also from a situation where we didn't have positive outlets a lot of times as kids. I understand depression. I ran a group home for 5 years. I understand suicide. I understand psychotropic medications. I believe we're doing more harm to the youth. I think at no time in this history since Father Abraham are we sacrificing the youth for our elderly. So I don't think it's too early. I think we're going to see ramifications, especially on the girls' side with no NCAA tournament. What are going to happen to these scholarships? If we don't have football, what happens to scholarships even on the guys' side? So I have a different outlook, me personally. SA Finance is going to adhere to every rule that we need to, that's prescribed by the CDC to take care of our kids. Ray Caldwell thinks the numbers of 1% should not eliminate opportunities for the youth.
Okay, and I appreciate that opinion. So let's get into this. Let's talk live periods, because that's where you guys with your organizations are in live periods, trying to get kids scholarships, all that stuff. What are you hearing on that end? And I don't know if this is true. I heard there may be some live periods in August, September, but just kind of educate listeners on what you guys are hearing from the NCAA sanctioned events and live periods and recruiting. Ray, go ahead.
I'm hearing that we may get some events in August. I think August 8th is being floated in the 22nd. We're not going to get July, as far as I know, at least on WBCA-wise on the women's side. We kind of follow guys, and I know when guys cancel theirs in July, we think we can read the writing on the wall, and we won't get that. So we're going to go ahead and accommodate through live streaming video and those things. And I hear we may even get some September, which I don't know how, because if the schools, see, that's the thing here. Do we even know if schools are going to, first of all, start on time? Number two, using those facilities. And I guess we can get into some of that stuff later. But NCAA, I am hearing potentially August and September.
Okay. Lupe, on the boys' side?
Same thing. I've heard, initially I heard kind of a week in August, 1 weekend in August, 2 weekends in September. And I think there was some pushback or fear of pushback from the college coaches saying, hey, look, man, we're barely, if they're even allowed to get their athletes back on campus. We have our athletes back on campus. We need to get them situated and need to get my family situated if their own kids are now going back to school. So I think their push is going to be for 3 weekends in September, kind of back to back to back is kind of the feedback that I've been hearing, But, a lot on the boys' side is that they're kind of just standing still. I don't think nobody wants to be the first one. I think everyone's going to kind of follow suit of what the pros do, right? And let the pros kind of take the hit, I guess you can say, if something goes wrong. and the NCAA is kind of just sitting still, at least from what I'm hearing. But hopefully we get 1 in August, 2 in September, 3 in September. That'd be ideal. But I mean, once again, we're just all sitting here waiting.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with the who's going to do it first. I've had people like, hey, you're going to run a tournament first, Mark? I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm not doing that.
Nobody wants to be the first one.
No. All right, Lupe, for you, let's get into shoe circuit and educate people, myself included. I'm not real in the AAU like I used to be, and I don't know a whole lot about the shoe sponsorship and all that, and I don't think a lot of people do. They have a lot of teams go around saying they are sponsored by shoes, and don't have to go into too much detail, but just educate everybody on, one, how do you get a shoe deal, and two, what it entails.
Sure. I mean, so getting a shoe deal is going to take, the first thing is relationships. You got to have relationships. If you don't have relationships at the level of people who make decisions, who can actually offer you a contract, that's the first step, right? The second step is you have to have an organization that has players that particular shoe company wants to put on a platform, and that they have the confidence in you, either the director or someone within your organization, that continue to produce that type of athlete and player to put on a platform, because it's a business. I mean, it is, right? I mean, they do live events. They bring 200, 300 coaches. They want to come see the top players in the country. So it takes relationships and it takes players. It's really easy to go and say, man, I'm sponsored by this, I'm sponsored by that. It's a spinoff. It really is. I see a lot of people, I guess franchising is maybe the right word, in different organizations coming into different cities around the state of Texas, kind of franchising their brand. I mean, it's smart. I'm not knocking what they do. I mean, they get to sell product. I mean, those middle school teams aren't getting shit for free. They're paying for it. And all it is, it allows that organization now to handpick, or hopefully if I've got a franchise in the city of Austin, for example, I'm going to go and maybe provide their one team with gear, but I'm going to have their other 5 teams got to pay for the gear, right? But they've got 1 or 2 kids that kind of come up through organization, and now I'm able to kind of take from them and put them on my top team when they get to 16s and 17s, when it really matters, because nobody gives 2 shits about middle school basketball at the shoe level. They don't care. They don't care about 15s, and they kind of just look you a little bit okay at 16s. It's all about the 17s at the end of the day.
Okay. And then Ray, to you, because I know you've been an independent team for as long as I've known you, and SA Finance been around. Explain to us how that works for you. And then 2, if you're even trying to get into a shoe circuit, clearly you're good enough. Your organization is definitely good enough to be on that shoe circuit, but just kind of tell us a little bit about that as well.
Well, I'm no longer an independent. You know, okay. I'm with the SSB, and like Lupe's talking about in regards to some of the franchises, we have an elite part of Adidas, which is 3SSB. We actually have 3 teams on 3SSB. We got a total of 18 D1s on 2 teams, SA Finest Unanimous and SA Finest Signature. And then my 15s are also on that 3SSB circuit. Will there be a circuit this year? Probably not, just like with all the other shoe companies. But I was independent for years. I was with Adidas previously, finishing the Final Four 2 years in a row before I decided to go back independent. There's pros and cons in regards to the shoe circuits. The main reason why I went back is because it was tough to find good competition in front of scouts. You know, if you're not on a shoe circuit, the scouts are being monopolized by shoe circuits. So you take my extravaganza that I have every year in the end of March or early April. Got 200 teams. I got every Nike team. Under Armour first year on the girls side was last year. I had both Under Armour programs on board, all the Adidas top ones. So that's a collection where we all can just go in there, throw up the ball, sort of like, a complete 94 feet. I know they have cross-pollination with the shoe brands, but we couldn't do that in front of scouts. So that's why I had to go back to Adidas to get some real bump in front of scouts. And again, I don't know if you wanted me to get into the pros and cons, but Adidas, they did right by us.
Okay. Here's some other questions for both of you, and we'll continue to dive into AAU. But the first one is educating parents. So, and either one of you can take it first. But to me, that's I think there's a lot of uneducated parents out there, and for some parents that are listening, there's obviously levels to this type of stuff, and not everybody can play on a Texas Hardwork or SA Finest. So kind of give your opinion or advice to parents listening, because I know there's a lot out there and a lot of contacted me on ways they should get. One, find an organization would be one question, and then the recruiting aspect too as well, because we know it's a very small percent that can get college scholarships at Division I level, Division II, the academic side and all that. So just kind of give us some advice to parents out there listening when they're trying to get closer to high school and they're trying to get their kid prepared for hopefully playing at the next level.
I mean, I think you have to surround, transparency, right? You got to find a program that's going to be transparent with you. We used to get a lot of flack because we never had tryouts. I think just maybe 2 years ago was kind of the first time we had tryouts. We kind of just went and handpicked the kids we wanted, went and recruited the kids we wanted in our program that we felt that could play at that level. And we did get a lot of flack from the city or people within the city saying, hey, man, you should have a tryout and this and that. And, I was always from the mindset that, and I already know the kids I'd like to have on these particular teams. So I'm just going to go and approach the parents about it. So once we did have tryouts, gosh, I think we got 100 and some kids this last time for tryouts. And, being realistic with the parents, I had parents kind of come to me and say, hey, I'd like little Johnny to play on your 17U team, right? And he was the very first thing I think where parents get a big misconception is they want to talk about what the kid did in high school. And he's first team all district, he averaged 24 points a game, 18, whatever the case is. It's irrelevant. If it doesn't translate to the next level, and that level is there's levels to that level, right? Then it's not really, if they got, first of all, they got to be open to the conversation, and they've got to be okay with the feedback. And I think a lot of parents will have, at least here in San Antonio, I've seen a lot of it's pushback because they think little Johnny's better than little Joe. And because little Johnny scored 24 points against little Joe, and little Joe only had 12. Well, shit, little Joe's 6'7", with the 7'1" wingspan, they look a little different than the 6'4" kid. And I think, from being transparent and kind of breaking that down and explaining that to parents, I think that's key. I think that's sometimes missing in the city. I think sometimes parents are misled, right, to believe that the kid can play at certain levels. But shit, guys, and I'm going to talk on the boys' side. I mean, we had 3 guys signed Division I this year. 3. And one of them had to go to a school in San Antonio to play on a national high school level because he only showed up there with one offer, and it was from Air Force. So, man, I'm not making the numbers up. I'm not making the stats up. It is what it is. The year before, I think we also only had 3 kids signed Division I, and I mean, and I can go on and on, so there is a misconception that parents, I think, will want to take whatever and it's their baby, I get it, it's their kid, what their child does in high school and kind of push it to you and say, man, you really need to look at this kid. He was first team all TABC. I mean, last year when Timberview beat Wagner in the state final, the MVP of the state championship game went JUCO. And he had to go JUCO because his dad called the coach. I know the head coach. He had no other offers because apparently his game didn't translate to the next level. And I think if parents will sit down and really listen to people who understand the next level and what coaches look for, and if they will actually take that information and put their child in the best position possible, there's free school. Just because you don't go D1 doesn't mean you can't go to school for free. We signed 2 kids Division II last year. I mean, one of them was a $250,000 scholarship, and the kid was waiting to go D1. And I'm telling them, they're not calling me. Like, if you don't take this scholarship worth $250,000, you lost your damn mind. And I told him and his parents that. I go, they're in Division I schools are not calling. The reason I know the level you think you can play at, I signed 2 kids at that level. So those same coaches, they're watching you. For whatever reason, well, I knew the reasons, but they're not going to take you. So this is your best option. Take it now before someone else takes that, and now you're stuck with no options.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Ray?
I think Lupe put it great. I mean, I would only add, at least from our perspective, is early education. No different than life. What you learn in the formative years is going to go ahead and dictate basically how far you go. And that's the way it is over here. We're going to get you in the 4th, 5th, 6th grade, hopefully. And then over years, you can understand. I can't make you understand your kid is not Melissa Smith in 5 minutes because what Lupe is talking about. I mean, you hear it all the time with these parents bragging about their kids and how awesome they are, which is a terrific thing. I don't think we can look down upon that. But since they don't have a clue, and then with Twitter, with social media, with Instagram, and I know we may touch on this later, but look at how weak the 2020 class is for girls in this city. It's the weakest since I've been here since 2007 and 8 because we got too many cooks in the kitchen. Too many guys with opinions that really don't know what it's about. They don't have those national connections. Their word don't mean anything, and they don't have a reference point. So what Lupe was saying, I know what a pro looks like. I know what an All-American looks like. I know what an NAIA kid looks like. But if I tell you you're an NAIA kid, like my kid, Lexi Rich, I think she scored about 2,000 points over at SACU, homecoming queen, had a terrific, she's the most successful player I had in finals history. A kid that said at NAIA. And I know we're going to talk about fit a little bit, but I celebrate her as much as a kid like a Keanu Williams, who's a projected first-round draft pick in the WNBA next year. But I went to her parents and said, look, you never going to play on a team with Keanu Williams. You never going to play with Amber Ramirez, who she graduated with in 2016. But her mama stayed in her lane, stayed in her role. Lexi got better within the program. She had a terrific career over at Madison, made all district 2-3 years, varsity 4 years. And now her career, if you put it on paper, is better than almost all of the All-Americans. It's better than all my All-Americans. That's the education process that I think most parents don't want to hear because they're listening to too many clowns that act like they know what they're talking about.
Yep, and we're going to touch on that. I agree. We've all talked about too many cooks and too many organizations and all that stuff. We'll touch on that later. Here's a question. Now we're getting on because we talked about the boys and the girls, and it was one of the weakest 2020 class on the girl side, but over the last, I don't know how many years, let's just say 10. Why do we have so many more on the girl side getting more Division I scholarships than on the boys side? Ray, you can touch on it first, and then Lupe. I don't know if there's an answer, but it's something I wanted to discuss.
First and foremost is 15 scholarships on the girl side, so it's easier to go D1. Now, that's even a perspective because it's not easier in that how many girls are at 5 years old trying to be like Kyrie Irving. So we have to teach idols. We have to teach culture. Now, once they get it, I think it does become easier because of the consistency. If you're planning, you talked about development, Mark, and I'm jumping ahead, but all development is growth. Are you planted in the right situation to grow? If you're not going to grow to the best of your ability. So I think we've been fortunate. Like I said, my 2014 class, my 13 class, we went 4 for 6. 4 D1s out of the 6. We went 9 for 12, 9 D1s out of the 12 in 2014. If I'm not mistaken, 7 out of the 9 have been with me since middle school. 2 of them, Erica Chapman, who went to Air Force, came to me as a freshman. Gabby Bowie came to me as a freshman as well. So basically all 9 were multi-year players because of the process. I think in San Antonio, I've been accused of not having competition. That's what these guys are saying in Houston and Dallas. I won't say names, but I've had to compete against 3 WNBA stars. 3. All played for the SA Silver Stars. Well, one of them didn't play for the SA Silver Stars. She was the damn GM for the SA Silver Stars. So I've had to go against 3. I've had to go against a NBA legend, not an NBA legend, excuse me, a San Antonio legend who played in the NBA on the girls' side. It's not about the competition. What it's about is our culture, our programming. And I'm not trying to turn this into an infomercial, but I think what started to happen when I went to Texas Tech, look at what happened in the 2020 class. A lot more people started getting involved with kids, and they went from being high majors to not even getting scholarships. I'm not a basher of kids. You will never see me bash kids online. But I will tell you in a private conversation that Sahara Jones and Deja Kelly were considered by some top 3 in the 2020 class in middle school. There was a couple of kids out there that national people had ranked higher than them. Those kids weren't planted in the right soil, and they're not even going to school. Again, that's not an indictment on those babies. I'm trying to answer the question in regards to why. I think on the guy side, on the outside looking in, and we do have a boys program, and we've have had a program for a while. We just got back into it. It's a lot harder because any dad can just wake up, any old hooper can just wake up and say, I'm going to start a program, and it ends up getting in the way in the long run.
Agreed. Lupe, on the boy side?
Yeah, Greg, perfectly, put it perfect, to be honest with you. It is. I'm a dad, right? Boo Man was a dad. That's how we started. I'm full transparent. If I did not have a son, I wouldn't be in this. If he wanted to play soccer, maybe have a soccer program. I don't know. I'm sure that's what you're going to have here, soccer programs. But, and I don't wake up. I have a daughter, and my daughter's playing basketball. She played for Ray. I'm a dad that has all the resources, and I don't want to do it on the girls' side. I just don't. And so you have a lot more dads. You have a lot of trainers, right? A trainer all of a sudden says, okay, I can train 5 kids. And all of a sudden I can have a team, and I think that's really what's hurt us on the boy side is we have too many trainers. I'll be real upfront with it, that there's levels that you can train kids at, right? And there's certain guys that understand what translates to the next level. As you know, Veer, Devin Brown's one of my closest friends. I've known Devin since a sophomore in high school. He's never trained my kid one time, not once, because he doesn't understand what he needs to translate from high school to college. Now, if he would ever get an opportunity to play at the next level, then he go give him some knowledge, but he can't share the knowledge of what he needs now and today. And I don't know if, and a lot of people disagree with me on this. I truly believe there's great trainers from early on. My son had some trainers early on. My son had some trainers later on. And Boo Man's been the guy who laid the foundation for the kid, and everybody knows that. But he goes to you. I've sent him to you, Mark. He went to Marco Rivera early on, right? So I also think that some of those trainers can't necessarily, if a pro comes back into town, you train a pro, because a pro they need different things. If you've been training a 7th grader to get ready to make the 18 for middle school, and you're training a high school kid to make his high school team, or a high school kid to be a mid-major, low, or high major kid, and then a high major kid who's now in college trying to get drafted, those are all different levels that are taught all differently. You guys are the skill trainers. I'm not. I just don't believe that you can have a fucking buffet. A trainer that's at a buffet can go train a 3rd grader, then in another hour train a pro, and another hour train a middle school kid. And I think that's where a lot of this stuff gets discombobulated. You have a lot of guys who come from overseas. The guy got a lot of dudes who played in the pro level who are trying to share their knowledge. I'm not sure they're sharing their knowledge probably the way it should be shared or explained to kids or parents, because they only see it from a pro perspective because they've been in the pro game so long. I think you really grassroots is grassroots. I don't got to call it an AU. It's grassroots for a reason. I stay in my lane. We don't make kids pros. Our goal is to put kids on a platform, educate the parents, skill them up at an early age, get them to college. The guys in college, I had a conversation with Coach Crutchford from Arkansas this morning. We're talking about levels. Same thing I told him. If I send a kid to you or you go to Arkansas, it's your job to make him a pro, not mine. I've done my job. I've got him to school. I'm not going to sit here. Boo Man had Jordan Clarkson when he was young. He's the first to tell you he didn't make Jordan Clarkson a pro. He got him to Tulsa. And then, ended up in Missouri. And somewhere from when he was in Missouri, someone made him a pro. So I think that's our biggest problem on the boys' side is too many trainers giving false knowledge. And I'm not saying they're doing it deliberately. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it's really diluted what kids are learning and understanding what really translates to the next level.
Mark, can I interject?
Absolutely.
See, and I love what Lupe just said there in regards to that, because I think that was the biggest difference back in the days on the girls' side. It wasn't until I went to Texas Tech did my girls start going to you, Mark, or even Hardwork. And I feel it's this. We all speak Spanish. But how do you teach a kid to speak Latin? I can't have building blocks if you go to a Boo Man gym and you working on this, you go to Mark gym, you working on this. I coach you, I train you, and I'm working on this. How do I add to your IQ? That's the biggest deal on the girls' side. See, on the guys' side, you just throw the ball up and go get it. And I'm not insinuating that the guys' side isn't more elite. We know that, right? But on the girls' side, you better know how to think the game. And trainers, a lot of trainers, a buffet, as Luke says, is not the way to go about teaching basketball IQ. If you look at my guards, That's one thing you will notice about my program is I never have mute guards. I done had 6 guards make USA basketball. None of them were ultra athletic. Keanu Williams didn't make it in, who's the most athletic guard I've had, didn't make it until she was in college. I've had unathletic guards make USA basketball. Why? How? Because they got to speak Latin. They didn't go to a buffet of Spanish speakers.
I agree with both of you. I've had this conversation for years. I put a post out there, I don't know when it was. I got a lot of heat because I feel there's a lot of non-basketball people involved, which hurts and it gets watered down. I'll just tell a quick story and y'all can add to it. I got here, San Antonio 03. When I got here, I got to the factory. I believe there was only 3 or 4. I'm talking on the boys' side. I wasn't really in the girls' side involved, but I think there was 3, maybe 4 AAU programs. We're talking like Rohawks, Spartans. I think Gada was around, and I can't remember, maybe another one. That was it. I think it was the Spurs. I'm sorry, but the Spurs. And yeah, and that was like 3 or 4 programs. The best, say 40 to 50 kids were playing on those programs. The Spurs would have 2 teams, a top team, a second team. And now I can't tell you we have 4 elite or that want to be elite programs that can compete on a national level. I couldn't even tell you how many AAU programs we have in San Antonio. I know it's not what it was back in 03. To me, and I want to get into this is the next segment I want to get into. For me being from Europe, things are a little different there in the way that we kind of played when I was growing up. So here's what I think would fix a lot of things, and give me your opinion on this, that we would have set divisions based on the talent of your program. For instance, anybody can go play at a tournament in Houston. They pay the $500, they're in. They go up there, they get waxed by 30, 40, whatever. They take the money, they're good. You couldn't do that in Europe. There was, like, say, a platinum division, a gold, and you would play that throughout the summer. And if you did well and you were the top team, they're kind of like soccer. You would get promoted. If you did bad, you get relegated. And there would be, not much movement, but every summer, a few teams would have an opportunity to move up based on their performance. If they weren't doing good, they would move down. It would eliminate the 20, 30, 40-point blowouts that we see constantly. Every tournament that I go to, I see it too much. That's what I feel we could do. I don't know if we can ever get there, but we have too many AAU programs. I'm talking more on the boys' side. I believe in San Antonio, my opinion, I've said this to Ray, that if you come to San Antonio and you say, what's the best girls program? SA Finest right away. That's like the program. Now, I do believe on the boys, it's Texas Hardwork, but here's what people always say, Lupe, and you know this, well, it's not always full of San Antonio kids. So that's it. But on the flip side to that, can we have 10 players from San Antonio go play on a UA circuit? A lot of questions involved in that. Lupe, I'll let you start, but just kind of give me your feedback on that.
You honest remember when I started this off with, there was the last 3 years, there's been less, I think, than 10 kids, right? I'm gonna add no. There's been 10 kids in 3 years signed Division I. So ask that question again.
Yeah, it's no, right?
Question.
Yeah, right.
I mean, now, like all the people who understand the shoe game, there's 24 Under Armour programs around the country. I think there's 30, maybe something, 30 Nike and 30 Adidas. There's 100 programs. There's 100 shoe programs across the country, right? There's 2 in Houston. There's 2 in Houston. 1, 2, 3 in Houston, and I think 3 in Dallas. Total like 6 now or 7 only. There used to be like 13 shoe teams, and a lot of people just don't have those deals anymore, right? So when they look at us, they call us the ASAC area, right? It's Austin, San Antonio, Killeen, going up north 35. The success we started seeing is when we started getting kids from outside of San Antonio, with the top San Antonio talent added in there. There's just not enough San Antonio talent. I think the 21 and 22 class is probably the most talented the city's seen in a long, long, long time.
Agreed.
But it's, once, Langston Love, gone, right? I mean, not even talking from a high school perspective, right? He left. Zach Clemens, gone, 2 high major kids. Jarrell Colbert's an import. He's not even from here, right? Trey White, he was an import, right? He's not from here. And then you have Vince, the one over at Cole. So it's a very rare that you actually have some high major kids in 2 classes. But guess what? Half of them left. Why? There's a reason why. And it's kind of coming back to what you're talking about, the European method. 2 reasons: egos and money. Egos and money. Because if I can go start a program and charge $150, and I've got a stud kid, and that stud kid's the reason I'm able to get all these other people because they all want to play with the stud kid, or they're assuming that I made the stud kid, not knowing that 90% of on the boy side is DNA, and the other 10% you got to figure out how to make them a basketball player, right? And they don't want to let that kid go. You and I have had this conversation. You and I have had debates. We've had arguments, even probably further than arguments, right? Big disagreements about, man, let a kid go. Let a kid be successful. But it's hard for them to let them go because guess what? They don't want to let that money go. Because if I let my 2 top kids leave and I lose my top team, why would anybody want to come sign up with, whatever, ABC Hoops? Nobody's going to want to sign up no more. They're my leverage to allow money to come through my door to finance my program. I'm not saying that's wrong. Listen, there's guys out there who make a living off this stuff. Man, dude, God bless them. Like, I support a lot of those guys. I have no problem with that. All I'm saying is if you can't provide a platform for your best kids to give them the best opportunity possible, and if they're a mid-major, high major, even low major, or Division I player, and you can't put them in front of a magnitude of coaches, not just a few, it's about a magnitude of coaches, you're doing that kid and that family a disservice. Now you became full of shit to me in my eyes because it is about you and it's not about the kid. There's been kids in our program that I've had conversations with parents and say, look, you're going to be playing behind somebody else, man. And I've sent some kids to Lou at the Toros. I've had a couple of kids that they just weren't going to get the reps that they needed, or they came to me and said, man, I want to come try. I said, man, I'll be honest with you, I ain't got no spot for you. But I'll tell you, go to Lou. I think Lou does an amazing job. I really do. Lou and I are very close. I think he does a great job with his kids. He puts his kid to, he puts a kid almost every year, Division I. Sometimes he's had, more than one kid go Division I out of his program. So I'm not going to hold a kid captive just to say I got all the top kids. I'm not going to do that. If the kid's not going to play, if the kid's not going to get what he needs to maximize his opportunities, I got to let him go.
Yeah.
I'm
Before you
different. I
say
make money on this. I'm not charging the high school kids. I don't charge them. They're play for free. So it's not a money thing for me.
But before you go, Ray, I'm glad you said that, Lupe, because I was not the money, but I was the ego guy. Because if we go back and talk about when we had our issues with Take Langston Love, I never truly understood it till probably a year later when I remember when you and Boo Man told me, like, hey, we can put this kid on the platform. You can't. Right? I didn't want to hear that. Like, who wants to hear that? You look back on it now. Yeah, I had just had some kids. I wasn't trying to travel all over the country, go to these, big tournaments and all that. And I didn't have the connections to play on the UA circuit. And then Langston at 15 years old played on your 17 U's. It was a rough season, rough summer for him, but he grew. That was, and he says all the time, one of the toughest summers he had that made him grow up as a player. So I look back on it. I'm a prime example of a guy that had an ego, like, no, I want him to stay with me because I've had him since 4th grade. But at the end of the day, putting him on a better situation, like you said, on a platform for him to get seen is more important than anything else. So I'll be the first one to put myself out there.
If you're in it for the kids.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And that's what it is.
That's what everybody says. I do it for the kids.
Yeah.
That's what everybody says.
Yeah. So I'm a prime example of that. So I ain't got no problem calling myself out because I did. And it took me a while to figure it out. But I agree with you 100% on that. I know you're laughing, Ray, but go ahead. You can chime in.
You say it. I'm laughing.
Why?
Yeah, because, say again?
Because you've done that to me sometimes. You call me a year later on stuff or no?
No, Mark. No. I didn't know Langston was with you in the 4th grade, and then I know we had a disagreement because I didn't acknowledge that. But it's funny now how we're both right because I gave Hard Work love when Langston went over there because of the culture. Yep. He had the good seeds. He had the good DNA, right, from his folks. He had a good soil from you, but he did need to get into a different culture, so I wasn't disrespecting. But anyways, I don't mean to put our back-end conversation out there. I see things differently on the girls' side. When we're talking girls basketball, we're going to talk about All-Americans. But I got Elena Thomas at Texas A&M. Had to quit basketball when she was a junior because of multiple concussions. Mom's a lawyer. Dad's a CEO. She's going to be dynamic. She's going to change this world. So to me, I think as many people that can get involved with girls to help them get anywhere to college, right? She didn't get any financial system. She can't play Texas A&M. She's not Farrah Jones. But I promise you, I probably have one or two girls that will make more money and the type of impact that she'll make long term through this. I am a free market guy, and I know market from England, and we got the monarchy and whatnot, but I like liberty, bro. I like free capitalism. When I got here from California, I had to try to set up shop and go against a WNBA Hall of Famer. How the hell can I get in if you put me in a level? No, I'm going to skill. I'm going to buy my time. I'm going to go to tournaments that's advantageous for my young women to get put on, and then I get to the spot I'm at. Now I'm at this spot. I'm supposed to say, well, all 10 girls in the city supposed to be with me. I always say this. Omarion used to date Beyonce. Let the natural course take its thing. He couldn't keep her. So when Lupe talking about some dude got this stud out there and won't let him go, what is this? I mean, how they keeping them? In the long run, they going to end up with Jay-Z if Jay-Z deserves to have them. And that's the beautiful thing about, I think, this free market. It's everybody. I'm not for everybody. Booman is an animal in the gym. Lupe is a Viking. Everybody can't play for hard work. Brendan Winslow, that's my love. Sister played for me since the 4th grade. Brendan went out for hard work, was going to get relegated to a second team. Now he's at Utah. It's hard work didn't fail. It's what he's talking about with Lou. Let the free market. I hate communism. Excuse me. Sorry to get off topic. Go ahead.
It's all them books you got back there you read.
Is that what that is? Yeah.
All right, so we're going to talk about your McDonald's All-American rate because we had a question about you've had multiple McDonald's All-Americans. Who do you feel made the most significant gains in terms of improvement with their time with you over the years you had them?
That's hard because Nalissa Smith is the best player I've ever coached, I think, outside of Clarissa Davis. And I didn't see Clarissa during that age, so I give Clarissa her respect. I think she's the greatest to ever come out of this city. And she was gifted. Dad played D1 at UTSA, so as Lupe always says, DNA is undefeated. But I think she grew leaps and bounds in the understanding of the game and being growing into her body. But I would have to say Keanu Williams. Keanu Williams was a mute when I got her. You know, played for her dad, who's done a great job at the grassroots level, recognized that he had a ceiling, brought her to me in the 7th grade, let me bang on her, chew on her, and the kid got better. If you look in high school, nobody was on Kiana like that. In fact, at one point, I remember, this is an interesting one, is that she really wanted to go to Maryland with Brenda Freeze. And Brenda Freeze doesn't like to recruit Texas because she believes, like most people, that Texas, or a lot of schools, I should say, the Texas kids won't leave. So we finally got Brenda out. We're at a tournament. Kiana's playing the point. I'm banging on her to take more shots. I'm running nothing but ball screens, high flats, side pick and rolls, false action on the backside to isolate her. She's kicking it to my youngest, Desiree. Desiree hits 6 threes that game, gets the offer from Maryland. That's Keanu Williams. Keanu's always been better than Desiree. In high school, nobody said Keanu Williams was better than Amber Ramirez. Now, that may be still arguable, but in college, Keanu Williams has had the better career because she chose the right fit initially, but it was the Amber Ramirez show. So to me, Keanu just stayed the course. I'm not trying to compare myself to other people. I'm just going to do me, but she definitely embraced the leadership. If you listen to that young woman talk now, it is night and day from a 7th grader. That kid was so shy and in the shell. So that would be the one kid that I think made the most significant gains, in my opinion.
Lupe, what about you and y'all's program?
The question mark you went in out when
so basically, out of all the players you had, who do you feel has made the most significant gains in terms of their improvement over
Vincent Wachuku. Vince couldn't. I mean, so I saw Vince his 7th grade year. He was playing against Austin. Was Randolph versus Cole. And I remember walking in the gym at the time. Randolph didn't have for whatever reason we were playing at Tom Brown's gym. And I walk in like middle of the first quarter and I see this big old kid. And I'm like, what in the world? And I mean, it looks like his feet are on fire. I mean, probably shoes are too small. Who knows? I mean, he couldn't even walk. I mean, he was absolutely really bad. And I think And he also, this was 7th grade year. So from his 7th grade year to where he's at now, the strides that he's made and all the work that Boomman's done with him, and a lot of it too was lack of confidence. He also played on a team that at that time now there's probably 7 high majors that were on that 7th grade team at the time that was like, one of the top teams in the country. So he never played. I mean, Vince didn't play at all. I mean, last year on our 16U team, he was as a freshman playing 16U, was the first time in 3 years he ever started for our organization. Talking about a top 30, top 40 kid in the country. First time he started was last year. So he went through the process. He went through the grind. And a lot of it was he was motivated because there was just a lot of kids that he was surrounded by that were just better than him. I mean, there'd be kids, and I tell kids on the program all the time, I said, y'all better stop messing with him because y'all asking him for some tickets in about 5 years. They're like, oh, coach, this. I was like, okay. Because at the end of the day, it's DNA. The dude is 7 foot with the 7'2", 7'3" wingspan. You can't teach that. I mean, name, how many bigs come through the city? You probably named 5 of them in the last 10 years. So I truly believe that he's been the one that's improved the most. And not only because he's a naturally ranked kid, but because he had so much to have to fight an uphill battle against because he was on such a successful team. He never saw the floor. I mean, that team traveled all over the country. I'm telling you, he played mop-up duty. He hardly ever played, but it motivated him. It motivated him to get where he's at now. And as long as he can keep that same motivation, sky's the limit for the kid.
Yeah. I like that because I'll be honest, I don't think a lot of people know where he started. A lot of people just see Vince now and they think like he's just 7'1" and he just is where he is because of his size, but he's put the work in and you guys have worked with him too. Ray, a question for you. Talk about your time at Texas Tech and share after coaching at the collegiate level what kids need to focus on to get there, I guess would be the question. So just something to do with Texas Tech while you were there.
The thing about it is just how much of a job it is. I don't think a lot of people understand that. And we take a lot of these kids' childhood. Friday nights aren't for movies when you're chasing that 1.5% as a Division I basketball player if you don't have VIX type, attributes, the DNA. If you're not on the girls' side and Alyssa Smith, it's hard to go D1. So you're giving up a lot of your childhood. So that's the biggest thing is that it is such a job. You better be mentally tough. And the programs and the kids that come from programs that just roll the ball out, you better have Alyssa Smith's athleticism because the things and amount of preparation, way more than the guy side. You take Tubby. I used to sit in Tubby's practices. I used to sit in Chris Beard practices. Tubby's going to down everything on the right side of the floor. He's going to flood it middle on the left side of the floor, all side pick and rolls. So it simplified things on the guy's side. On the women's side, if Rashay Caldwell is in this spot, we're going to trail it. We may blitz it if she's in the slot zone. If she's on the right, we're going to go ahead and go under the screen. It's just so many different things that I think personally on the women's side, they make the game so analysis by paralysis with the kids that if you're not in the right program, you will not last at the Big 12, the P5 level, let alone, the D1 level. You better choose the right fit. That's the biggest thing to me is how much these kids are overloaded at that level.
Yeah, and I had an interview with Leslie Valpo not too long ago, and we talked a lot about that. I didn't know. I asked her about her times offline with Tulane, and that's what she said. They had so many sets, so many schemes. She was like, man, I was just mentally worn out, but that's why she was so successful at Tulane because of her IQ was so high and she was able to, beat out some kids that were a little more athletic, but she just could run the plays, take care of the ball, do what her coach needed to do. So it's a good point. I didn't even know that when I talked to Leslie. All right, here's the next question for Lupe. You go first. The most important attribute to your program success. That's kind of a big question, but if you could just pick one thing.
Culture. I think it's you hear it all the time. You hear all the recruiting pictures. You hear it, I say pictures, but you hear everybody talk about it. And you have to have culture. I mean, we wouldn't be as successful as we are as long as we have been. And a lot of people knock us for the way we do things and don't really go after a lot of the local kids. And then that's fine. But at the end of the day, we've been successful because of the culture. And I think it started early. It started from when we started our program. It was something that our whole goal was always to skill kids up, develop them, get them a chance to provide a platform at some point to allow them to be able to play at the next level. It was never trophy chasing. It was never, to support our families. It was just something to build a culture. And and for you know me, Mark, Ray knows me. Booman and I are cut from a different cloth. And Ray's right. Can't everybody play for me? I tell parents that all the time. I have parents call me from all over the cities and are interested. My first thing out of my mouth is I've got to see your kid play if he's talented enough. And I'm not sure if he fits our culture because we're not for everybody. And that doesn't mean that the kid's not a Division I kid that doesn't play for us. He just might not fit his culture. But more importantly than the kid, the parents, because you're not only recruiting the kid, you're recruiting the family. Because I can go tell little Johnny, hey man, you're seen as a combo guard. And the reason you don't get no offers is because you're 6'1.5" and you shoot the fucking ball 20 times a game. And that's not going to translate to the level you want to play at. Yeah, you're right, coach. I got you. So I get him for one game to finally facilitate and what college coaches want to see. But he's going home and his mom is telling him, his dad something, oh man, you got to put up numbers, man. You got to score 30. Stop passing the ball so much. So now I'm fighting the parents, right? And I tell the parents all the time, unless you work at a university and you call timeout on the bench, you have no say in this. Like they're not going to offer your kid based upon you telling them to keep shooting the ball or being counterproductive about what we're telling them, what college coaches' feedbacks is given to us to give to the kid. So the parents are another big reason, I think, of the culture that we have, because we've been very selective to have parents that buy in, stay out of the way, and allow us to do what we can do.
Good. That's good advice. Ray?
Lupe hit it on the head. And I said something earlier I don't want taken out of context in regards to Lupe and Boo Man, just as far as them being who they are. And I think my reputation is similar, is that we don't suffer fools lightly when it comes to our culture. You can't be in a hard work gym and not get ran away. You can't be in the finest gym and I don't run you away. And I'm listening to, and I think this is the perfect example of when things start to go the wrong way. So if I am a club director that's trying to start this would be my advice as Lion King. Now I'm listening to Jordan Peterson talk about how Lion King is essentially the story of Isis, Osiris, Horus, Egypt mythology. And Mustafa is Osiris. And Scar is Satan, Set. You only get your kingdom ruined is when you take your eye off your culture. And that's what I think people really need to look at. It's not about the talent of a kid. It's when you take your eye off that culture, when you have certain principles that your organization are going to abide by, and you start to go away from those, you're done. And that would be the main thing I think you need to start off with.
All right, next one. We've got a few more. We'll wrap it up. I want to get done in a little over an hour. Can San Antonio ever get to the level of Houston and Dallas? Lupe, I'll let you start because I know it's probably more for the boys, and Ray, you can touch on that because I feel like your program probably competes with Houston and Dallas every single time you play them. In San Antonio, I think maybe, Lupe, you're the only team that can compete, and Lou with the Toros, a few others, but I guess they're asking, can we ever get to the level? I have my opinion. I think it's comes down to kids and DNA and how much bigger and stronger, and there's more kids there, but you go ahead. What you got on that?
It's funny because my own son argues with me about it because he thinks there is enough DNA here, but he's not old enough to understand it, I think. Yes and no, right? And I say no because we don't have enough people. When I say DNA, it's not that the DNA here is bad. It's just not enough of the good DNA, right? You walk around Walmart off of the Beltway, and you're gonna, and just Walmart, and you walk around and you see 6'1", 6'2", 6'3" mamas. You see 6'8", 6'9" dads who they might not even hoop. They're just walking down aisle 5 getting some freaking bread. You're like, damn.
Okay, Jimmy the Greek.
And so it becomes, it's just, and we don't have the population's not there, right? It's well, first of all, culture as a city, right? And that's a whole different topic. Not enough DNA, meaning not enough six. I tell Booman and Anissa all the time, they need to have a baby. That's 2 good DNAs. We need them to have a baby. So it's that. You know, and there's not enough of it. And because of that, we don't have volume. Our population's 1 million. The population of Houston is double that, and Dallas is probably triple that when you bring in Fort Worth, you know, into the equation. So can we compete occasionally? Yeah, we can. I mean, yes, we can. Do we ever get to their level? We never do. Not in my lifetime, not in your lifetime, not in our kids' lifetime. Not going to happen.
Ray?
Nah, he's right. And I said, you know, the whole Jimmy the Greek thing, he got in trouble for telling the truth. But you know, it is what it is. You got 6 million people in Houston. You got 6 million people in Dallas Metroplex, and a lot of them have the DNA. And you got 2 million soccer playing people in San Antonio. And I know that's not a popular thing to say as far as DNA. But hey, we can never do it. You know, I go in and I'm gonna try to X and O, and we get a few kids out of the Dallas and Houston areas ever since we built what we built. And we can beat them at times, but nah, I mean, come on. Those areas are huge.
All right, I agree with both of you. Here's an add-on question. How can we possibly close the gap? Is there ways to close it? Is it too far right now, or are we good where we're at, or do we feel we can close that gap?
Condensing the talent. You can close the gap if you condense the talent. I mean, I had this conversation the other day, right? And I was talking about, I do believe the 21 and 22 class in San Antonio is one of the most talented that we've seen in a long time, Mark, and you're very connected to those classes. You train a lot of those kids.
Yep.
You take and I'm not going to count Jarrell Colbert because he's an import, right? He's not a San Antonio kid. So you take a Zach Clemens, and you take a Langston Love, and you take the kid Antonio, Gavino's boy, what's his name? G. Right? You take a Vince, you take a Jay Sean, you take an Austin. I mean, you can go compete with those kids, right? But now where you might run into some trouble is you ain't got no depth. So the first 5 usually can compete. The first 5, I can say year in and year out, if you take the top 5 kids in the San Antonio surrounding area and put them on one team, you can compete with Houston and Dallas all the time, especially if you have a big. So it's rare that we have, you have a Vince, you have a big, you have a 7-foot kid. So usually we don't have a lot of that size. The guards, you shake a tree and 1,000 some bitches fall out. So usually the guards will be okay because a low major guard can guard a high major guard. That's what people don't realize. So parents get confused because a low major guard can guard a high major guard. They can't. They can't. Doesn't mean that low major guard can do what the high major guard can do consistently over a long period of time. That's the difference. But it's the depth. The 6th guy, the 7th guy, the 8th guy. Man, the guys they're bringing off the bench, you're just like, oh, smokes, god dang. And we're bringing, you know, Lil Lupe and Lil Mark off the bench, you know, and so that's the problem, is the depth. A lot of it's the depth. Yeah, so I think the first 5 can compete. It's the depth that is where we get hurt, 6th, 7th, 8th guy on the bench. If we were to condense the top talent on one team.
You think that's what we should start looking at?
Mark, ego and money, Mark. I mean, I know you keep circling back, man. You're from Europe, man. Y'all just don't get it. Y'all communist over there, man. It's ego and money. Never will happen. Never.
I agree. I'm just putting it out there. You know me. Ray?
It did happen because the free market in 2014 allowed me to have Rashay Caldwell, Tanea Beauclair, Carly Heineman, Wendy Knight, you know, kids that went to the next level and contributed well. And then in the city, we had Kyra Lambert, who was in McDonald's in 2015. We had Mackenzie Calvert, who was arguably or should have been a McDonald's All-American. So we did condense it. So I agree with both of you. If we condense our talent, we can play with anybody. But back then, it was naturally condensed. You only had the Jaguars, who had you know, Lambert and Calvert. You had Finest, you had Clarissa Davis, and you had Sophia Young, elite, when it was ran by Mikey Connor. Those were the ones, and we put out players that have had successful college careers. I want to say Lambert, if she didn't score 1,000 points, she was on pace before the injuries. Say scored 1,000 points. Wendy Knight at Rice 1,000 points. I think Calvert scored her 1,000 points. Tanea Beauclair, all conference at some point. Over at in the Pac-12 in Utah. So we had kids that went on and matriculated to college and did it by condensing it, but it was free market, Mark.
Yeah,
it was free market.
I get it. So my question is why, and I know Lupe saying ego and money, but it can happen because you're a prime example of it can happen. So why is it not happening on the
it also
side?
starts, it starts even lower than the grassroots sides, right? Because you look at the DMV. I think the DMV area got a lot of close friends of mine from DC. You know, I'm up there a lot. I take Austin up there to train with a very close friend of mine named Hamid Phil. He's like the John Lucas of the East Coast. Man, they all get it. The coaches get it, and it starts at the middle school coaches and the high school coaches, right? For the most part here, most middle school coaches in San Antonio are football guys. I mean, it's a football state, guys. Let's be honest. So they're the ones that are first. Sometimes if they haven't played an AAU program, they're getting coached by a football guy, and they just start. I'm not knocking that. It's what it is. Then you go to high school, and it's still a good old boy system here in San Antonio, right? They don't like to play. They don't want to play the national high school guys. They don't like, you know. They don't want to be all about the recruitment, and they're just stuck in their ways. They want to run their 8-9 sets and plug a kid here, plug a 6'5" kid in the post when he should be learning how to dribble and handle the ball because he'll never play in the. I get it now. High school guys' jobs are to win games, get to district, and try. They're judged on how many games they win, how many times they win district championships when they get to the regional state tournament. I understand that, but it's still the culture that I think it starts not only in grassroots but in the middle school and high school levels where they're not on the same page as most AAU coaches. I'm saying all of them. I'm just saying some of the older regime where they just don't see it the right way. They wouldn't agree with a kid leaving their high school program for a better situation to play against better competition. If everyone had the same mindset, then yeah, I could say that because now you have high school coaches pushing you to the same direction. They're going to push you to the Rays. They're going to push you to the Blues. They're going to push you to the Hardwork. So I need to go play here. This is where you need to be because that's where all the competition is, knowing they're going to come back better. Instead, it's just like, now I'm going to go put you with my friend, or I'm going to go put you where I can maybe either hide you or what. I don't know. I don't understand why the mentality is what it is, but a lot of it starts, it's got to be grassroots, middle school, high school. You go to the DMV and DC area, boy, that's a different world out there. That Catholic League, I've seen it. I've been to the games at the Matha. It's the culture, and it's not the same culture here. I think Dallas, Texas, is the closest to DC, and Dallas right now is above everyone else in the state. They're one of the top cities in the country in basketball right now. They just are. Houston's a little bit down, and Jimmy knows that. I'm sure I said that the other day on the show. Jimmy and I, we talk a lot about that. I think Houston's down a little bit. They're going through a lot of what we go through here, but the difference is they have a lot more. They have better players and athletes to fight over versus than we do.
Ray, you want to add to it?
Lupe made a great point about high school coaches. I think in San Antonio we have some good high school coaches. They go to clinics. I know Tina Camacho sent me your link in regards to refereeing clinics. So she's trying to educate club coaches on getting a better understanding of the rules, the same way she's sending that out on that thread with 30 people, 30 coaches in her profession. So I think we do have good high school coaches that do already on the girls' side what Lupe's saying. I'm not flossing with the program, but if you go back since we've had graduating kids here, there hasn't been a team that has gone to state that we haven't had multiple players in the starting lineup that has been with us for a significant amount of time. Because Treva Corrales, Jeff Chapman, they're smart enough to say, I got a fifth grader, big feet, big hands, she's showing some promise. You may want to go look at finance. So when they get on campus as a ninth grader, I've done my job, and I don't get in their way, and they allow us to have our season. We don't have that conflict, and I be here. So when Lupe talks culture, I see it. It's changed a lot, though, over the years on the girls' side.
Okay. Yeah, good stuff. I got my opinion. I'm going to save that for another time on that because I do know, obviously, I officiate a lot. So I'll touch on it real quick. I work a lot of boys and girls games. I do both. And I know how some high school coaches feel about AAU. And I think they're just not educated. They don't really, they don't go to games. A lot of them don't even go to their middle school to see what kids they have coming in. Some of them won't even know until they're freshmen when they land on campus. Like, if I'm a head high school coach, I want to know what kids 6th, 7th grade that possibly will come through my program in the next few years. Let's just take Alamo Heights, for example. Their freshman group this last year didn't lose a game. They've been playing together since 4th grade. They're a really good Alamo Heights team. They're a bunch of friends. There's not one stud that needs to leave right now. Now, there may be one kid that may get to 6, 7. I think he's going to be the next Ben Hart. I really do. We joke about it all the time. But at some point, that kid may need to go play for Hardwork or go play for Lou, something like that. But right now, I talked to Coach Brewer. He wasn't even 100% sure who those kids were. I said, man, we've had these kids at the factory since 4th grade. Like, you should have these kids know what they're doing. And like, to your point, Ray, is hey, this group needs to go play here, or you need to go play there. I think it can only help. So I think on the girl side, and I know Camacho real well, Treve, I've come close to them over the last few years. I think they're more in tune with the middle school and with the AAU circuit than on the boys side. And I think that, to Lupe, to your point, I think it's a great point. I think that can only help as far as that. All right, we got 2 more questions, and then we're going to close. One question is, you've both been successful coaching your own kids, which is hard. It's tough. Just touch on that. Ray, you can go first with both of your daughters, and Lupe, you can talk about Austin. But I think it's been a good balance of you coaching them, but also allowing other people to select few, also helping with their growth.
Very difficult. You know, I've made some mistakes, and I advise parents all the time, you know, go with the rule that once you hit the car, you know, let's not discuss on-court performance as long as you did not, you know, embarrass yourself in regards to integrity, right? You didn't curse out a ref. You didn't get a technical, you know, behavioral situations. As long as you know, had some dignity with the way you performed, even though you may have not performed to the best, shut up when you reach the car. I said this on a podcast a few days ago. My youngest basically played basketball because of the oldest, and she just wanted my attention. And I'm very proud of her, you know, because she's not the most athletic. You know, she has some back issues since she was 12 years old, and she played 38 minutes for a Pac-12 program at 19 years old this year. I'm much more proud of her than my oldest, even though my oldest had a more successful career. But it has allowed us to spend some time together. And I know these days, you know, parents working 50, 60 hours a week, kids with these, you know, contraptions, spending time with your kids is something we've been reminded of during this imprisonment that we've had over this past month.
Nope.
You know what? It's tough. It was, you know, as you know, I coached them young, you know, and I think I wasn't like Ray. I wasn't as mature as Ray. I didn't let it go when we got to the car. And I think there was kind of a point where I think even Tamika kind of just said, you know what? I think I might have been going in the 6th grade year, maybe. It might have been 6th, 7th grade. I can't remember what year it was. And she kind of said, look, you have 2 choices. Either you let it go or you find someone else to coach them. And I was kind of like, you know, okay, whatever, right? And then the more I thought about it, so you know what, it's time, right? And I probably held on a year too long. I'll be honest with you. When it becomes an issue between the kid and the parent, and it becomes beyond basketball, right? And it's very hard when you're a competitive parent and you're trying to teach your kid to, you know, the same things, right? And there are lines that are crossed. I've crossed the line many times, you know, and kind of sitting back and saying, you know what, it is time to entrust someone else. And he's got to go through the process. And it wasn't as much for me wanting to baby him. It wasn't that. It was more me trying to teach him the right way and competing in the right way. So it was tough. It was hard. You can ask Austin. He's very open with you. Mark, you guys are close. He texts you all the time. He hated me from, I think, probably 7th grade through 9th grade. I mean, he didn't want me around him in the gym. But now as he's older and we have really good conversations, he tells me, you know what? He goes, last summer, I got everything you were talking about. So it took him some time to mature and say, now I see what you're talking about. Now I realize why you were so hard on me. So and the kid's got to want it. If the kid doesn't want it, you can never force it on the kid. That's the biggest advice I can give to parents. If you have to make your child go to the gym to work out, then man, leave it alone. Let it go. He's got to want to ask you. And I think putting him with somebody, letting you train him, and he's had someone else coach him from 6th grade on has been great. I did coach him a little bit during the transition year, and then for about 4 months, and shit, I hated it. I was ready to I was ready to give him back. But that'd be my advice. You know, love them hard. Understand that there's a fine line, and once you see yourself crossing it as a parent, it's time to pass the kid on.
Hey, Mark, can I interject?
Yep.
Hey, real quick. Think about what you started this podcast off with, which was The Last Dance. A whole bunch of us that were Michael Jordan in our driveways. I would love more fathers to get involved because as much as women hate it, fathers is who run women's basketball. Has been that way. We the ones who start off with a kid, we put kids around them, and we grow it. When fathers like Charlie Harper, who's my mentor, kid gets a master's degree, he's working on a doctorate, he gets out of the game. It's unfortunate because how many kids have been blessed through his efforts? I'm talking dozens of kids went to school with the Lady Rohawks. I say all that to say this. There will never be a Last Dance that's as popular as Michael's if we don't grow the girls' side by doing what? Growing more girls basketball players, and who gets them involved? Fathers. That's why I don't want classifications. As many dads as you want, get involved. If the kid's supposed to be with me or a club that's comparable to mine, they're going to end up coming to me. The key is don't let that kid that's not an Alyssa Smith say, well, I don't want to play basketball. Well, she's never going to go supporting Alyssa Smith when she gets to the WNBA because she's discouraged and she hates the game. We should have as many people involved in the game if we want to grow our clientele.
Good point.
Yeah, good point. Yeah. All right, last question. We talked about this before we went on live. If you had to pick one kid for your poster child for your organization, Lupe, you can go first. Who would it be and why?
Jalen Jackson. I think he just encompasses everything we are and we're about. Hard work, culture, great kid. I mean, he's everything. I mean, he's not only one of the original ones, but I mean, he's put in all the work. He's one of the hardest working kids I've ever been around. I think all the kids look up to him. And then he set the tone. He set the tone for the program. Is he the most talented ever come through our program? No. I mean, me and Boo Man argue about it. He might not be the most talented in his house, to be quite honest with you. From a talent perspective, not from a work ethic, it's a different conversation. But I think he set the tone for our program. I know he set the tone for the kids in his grade, the kids below, for my own son, and all the young ones. So Jalen Jackson, without a doubt.
Good stuff. Ray?
My version of Jalen Jackson is Keanu Williams. Same thing. I'm a huge fan of Jalen Jackson. Watched him grow up. See, I don't need to know the dynamics of the North Texas locker room to know that he's contributing, and that's Keanu Williams. You know, locker rooms are some of the worst situations in women's basketball, and that's why I think the portal is catching up to the guys, is because you got a bunch of young women that don't personify growth playing the game because probably they got knuckleheads coaching them. So they want to be Tupac. One thing that I love what David Stern did was clean up the league through guys like Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson. You can't grow a product on anger. The only heavy metal in rap is growing on anger. And that's the problem with women's basketball, is that you have too many angry women playing the game asking us to buy tickets for you to be angry. We could talk whether that's right or wrong. Nobody gets mad when Damian Lillard curses. That's not the question. The product is suffering because we don't have more Keanu Williams. Whether her feet are hurting, she plays 43 minutes in the game, takes 5 charges, is 3 for 17. She's going to smile. She's going to sign autographs. She's going to be a role model. Now, when she gets in that locker room, she can be, quote, unquote, ugly. Last night, she's in the gym, same safety procedures that you guys went through, and she is going as hard with the sixth grade kid that can barely walk and chew gum. She's there multiple sessions. So, yes, she's working out with fellow college players last night, but you couldn't tell her that at 6. Coach Ray, I'm going to get in this session. And she's doing drills with a little kid who's oogling at her every time she's turning around like, I'm really working out with a Keanu Williams. She personifies, to me, everything that's right about our culture and our program.
Yeah, it's good stuff. All right, we're going to do a part 2. I had too much fun with this. I don't care what y'all say. We're going to figure it out. But I appreciate you both coming on. I think this has been phenomenal. I'm going to, just for you listeners, it's recording. I'm going to save it. If you guys are okay, I'm going to throw it up on YouTube, if you guys don't mind if I do that, for listeners that weren't able to.
Appreciate it.
Okay, cool. All right, guys. Hey, I appreciate you guys. We'll be in touch. All right, take care. Appreciate y'all listening.
All right, Lupe.
All right, Ray.